Fraud Prevention 101, the definitive guide to keeping you safe and sound. Presented by Golden Providers. Golden Providers are top industry professionals in real estate, assisted living, senior care, and so much more. Visit us online at goldenproviders.com.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming out. It's great to see you all. We are Golden Providers, and if you ever want more information about the Golden Providers, we have a website. It's goldenproviders.org, and we're on Facebook as well. Today we're going to be talking about something that's very unfortunate that we even have to meet and talk about, and that's fraud prevention. We're doing a series of seminars that are focused on seniors and how we can help seniors in our community. We realize that fraud and people who scam other people, it happens to people of all ages, but it's exceptionally contemptible when people go after seniors and trick them in different ways out of their money and other assets. So what we're going to talk about today is trying to find a way to educate as many people as possible as to what's going on out there and how you can avoid being the next victim of these types of things. We have a number of different experts in different fields that are going to cover some of the different things that are happening. And we believe that through this education that we will be able to at least help prevent some of the things that are happening, because you'll be able to detect something this isn't right. There's something wrong here. This person is asking for information that they should already have if they are who they say they are, or they're doing something, they're leading up to trying to get my credit card information. Something along those lines that doesn't quite make sense. And developing that skill to sense when something's not right can be very important, to know whether that email is something you should click on or immediately delete and not click on and not open. Golden Providers is an organization that's been around for some time. It's a network of local businesses in our community that meet together regularly. We're from different industries, and our goal is to get to know each other because we refer business to each other, and also we build this network of people that we would trust referring to our mother or grandmother. We know these different providers, and we also engage in education. We educate each other at the meetings that we have, and part of this seminar series that we're doing now is educating the general public as much as possible. We're trying to make sure that the public is aware of different things that can help and support seniors. We did a seminar recently about downsizing. Today's event is going to be about fraud prevention, avoiding being scammed or defrauded. And our next seminar is going to be about safety for seniors. So all of these subjects are important for whether it be the senior themselves, or it could be children of a senior who's experiencing some of these things, or if you're a younger person who's planning on being a senior someday, hopefully all of us, and or that you know a senior that you might be able to help with some of this advice. So we look forward to our information today. We have some special guest speakers, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker up. He's our spotlight speaker is our state attorney, Phil Archer. He's going to be talking about avoiding fraud.
All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you to the Golden Providers. What a wonderful idea and service to our community. Prevention, education is really the biggest weapon that we have in trying to combat fraud and fighting those that would take advantage of most of the time our most vulnerable citizens, either seniors or someone that may be suffering from some mental issues and dementia and so forth. So what a wonderful idea to get together and share this information. And so I go out, and people from my office, we go out to as many of these kind of organizations or as many of these events as we can. And so it's really exciting to see not only that you all are here, but that they're taping this and make that available to other people. Because that's the key. It's really education and prevention. It's kind of a small group, but let me ask you, how many people in here, either themselves, a family member, a friend, that you know that has been scammed or ripped off or had some kind of identity theft or fraud? How many of us in this room? Yeah, look at this. I mean, wow, what are, almost 90, probably 90% of us in this room. That's amazing. It's amazing and frightening and disheartening probably all at the same time. But that's what we were seeing across the United States, not only just in Brevard County or in Florida, but across the United States. Now, unfortunately, Florida is usually number one or number two in fraud and scams that hit our state, and that's not something we're proud of. But we do have a large concentration of seniors in the state of Florida. We have nice warm weather. Today it's a little chilly, but it's going to be nice and sunny and beautiful. Well, I'd say chilly, right? Yeah, I know. It's a few degrees cooler. So, but at least, there's a lot of people come here to retire, and they bring with them money and savings, and so they're targets. So we have a lot of targets here in the state of Florida. And it's disheartening because when you look at crime stats across the United States, in Florida and across the United States, in Florida we're at a 49-year crime rate low. Violent crime is down, and that's the same across the United States. Most crime is down, violent crime is down, historic lows in most states, except for one area. Guess what? Scams and frauds. White-collar crimes geared towards these internet scams and identity thefts and so forth, those are way up. And why is that? Well, bad guys and bad girls, they're not stupid. Some of them are. We can usually catch the stupid ones, but they're not all stupid. And they know, they do a risk-benefit calculation, and so they have figured out, we can rob a bank and get $10,000 or $20,000, and there's a lot of risk in that. You're going to have to carry firearms, and there's alarm buttons, and police are going to show up. And you rob a bank here in Brevard County, our sheriff, Wayne Ivey, or police chief, if it's in the city, they're going to investigate and come after you. It doesn't matter if you leave here and go to somewhere else. They're going to track you down and find you. But the bad guys have learned, you know what, we can, instead of doing that, why don't we get $1 from 20,000 people spread across the whole United States? What police agency is going to come after me? Probably none. It's almost impossible. So they've learned through the use of computers and phone calls and robocalls and all these different technologies that we have, and makes our lives easier in a lot of ways, but it also makes it easier for crooks. And so they have learned they can make so much more money with these scams with very little risk of getting caught. When people send money, by wiring money or mailing off checks or gift cards and all those things, most of the time you don't know who you sent it to. You might have a name, which we know that name is not going to be a real name. The address, a lot of times, are P.O. box or drop boxes that are usually hired or put together by under false identities and so forth. So once the money leaves here, once you send money to somewhere outside our area, it's pretty much gone. And I have to give that sad news to so many victims to say, once that money is gone, it's pretty much gone. We're not going to get it back. And that's not because local law enforcement doesn't care. They just don't have that kind of resources. They can't, when you wire money to Mexico or you wire money to Canada or you send money somewhere else, they don't have those resources to be able to go and conduct those investigations in other countries or in other states. It's just impossible. So that's why this is so important to get out and do these kind of seminars and events. And anyone out there that sees this video, you have an organization, I don't care if it's 10 people or 100 people, let us know, get in touch with us, and we'll be glad to come out and speak to your group as well, because I really do believe this is the way we have to do it. So let's talk a little. One of the things I like to do is try to talk about some of the current scams that we're seeing. And unfortunately, when I say current scams, they seem to be the same ones over and over and over again, but we see them rotating in and out, and we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'll just do a couple real brief ones, and then I'm going to have some handouts that'll be available for you that we can talk about later. But one of the biggest ones that we continue to see is the family member in trouble, and that hits a lot of our seniors, a lot of our people. And it's, to me, it's probably the worst one out there, because a lot of scams are based on people's greed. I've got $40 million in a bank account. I just need somebody's bank account to put it in. Those kind of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get $40 million. So those are kind of based on greed, right? And you get ripped off. You should have known, right? The old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. The family member in trouble, though, is the one that bothers me so much. And we've had a lot of local people that have fallen for that. Even within my office, we had a lady that worked for us. Her husband was home, suffered from some dementia, and he got a phone call and said, hey, your grandson has been in a horrible accident in Mexico. He's going to die if he doesn't get an operation, and they won't take his insurance, and you need to wire, I think it was $1,500, $2,000 immediately, or he's going to die. So he goes down, he wires the money. And I got to tell you, some of the organizations, probably some in Golden Providers, some of the Walmart and Western Union and banks are getting really good at trying to keep people from wiring money to other countries. So a lot of those companies kudos to them. We've had so many cases where they've stopped the person and say, why are you wiring this money? Why are you sending money to Mexico? Or and that's huge. And again, it goes towards that prevention and education. So anyway, he wired the money. Within a minute or a couple of minutes of that, one of the sons called and said, hey, what are you doing? And he said, I just wired money because so-and-so has been in a horrible accident. No, Dad, he hadn't been in a horrible accident. He's in New York or something like that. And they were able to go back, and the money had not been picked up yet, and they were able to cancel that, which is very unusual. Usually by the time you wired that money, it's gone. But they were able to cancel it, get the money back. And 30 minutes later, he gets a phone call and says, hey, why didn't you wire the money? Your grandson's going to die. And he said, no, it's a scam. I know it's a scam now. I've been told, blah, blah, blah. They hang up. 15 minutes later, they get another phone call. Hi, this is the U.S. Embassy in Mexico. We just want to let you know this is not a scam and blah, blah, blah. That is the links that they will go to kind of carry that off. And you're thinking, how does people fall for that? Well, they may make 100 phone calls. They may make 1,000 phone calls. They just need one person that maybe, 2 o'clock in the morning. How many of us are really thinking clearly at 2 o'clock in the morning? You might be just a little addled or whatever it might be, or if you are suffering from dementia or some other illnesses and stuff. And so, and you're panicking because, oh my gosh, I got to, somebody's hurt, and you wire that money. So they're very good at what they do. And then, people say, well, how do they know the person's name? Well, they're good at this. They're like carnival barkers. They know how to pull that information, or psychics or something, say, hey, Grandma, if a woman answers the phone, hey, Grandma, this your grandson, I'm in trouble. Well, who's this? Grandma, you don't even know your own grandson? Is this Billy? Yes, Grandma, it's Billy. That's all they need. They know how to pull just a nugget of information out to try to do that scam. And I said they may do this 1,000 times over a night. So they're very good at what they do. How else do you think they get information about you and your family and where you're traveling and all that stuff? Yeah, specifically Facebook, the devil's book, as I like to call it. So, and now, unfortunately, we're on Facebook. State Attorney Phil Archer. You can go on our site. I have a public information officer, and he does all my Facebook stuff, and we try to keep stuff up there about scams and so forth. So, unfortunately, I have to tell you, you can go there and get good information, but Facebook is just horrible. I mean, it really is, as far as the information that people put out there. And so, if I could tell you, one tip, it would be, be very careful what you put on Facebook. That has become a gold mine of information for people to use for scams and frauds. And I saw we have some other great speakers, it looks like, on internets and bank frauds and stuff. So I don't want to step on their toes, but the information they're pulling off Facebook. And we put out a newsletter a couple weeks ago, and I'll talk about that in a minute, in which now people are going on and stealing your identity basically from Facebook, taking your photo that you put up there on Facebook, and then sending that, making a fake profile and sending that to all your friends, because they get all your friends list on your Facebook page, and they send that. And so their friends open up, say, oh, it's, John Doe is sending me a Facebook posting, and he wants me to donate to his favorite charity, which is, ABC, which happens, to be a part of a scam. Well, it must be legitimate because there's my friend and his photos right there. Can't be a scam, right? Of course it can be, and that's so Facebook is becoming really, really huge, and that's a problem. I just read an article yesterday that unfortunately, again, last year, seniors were again the number one target number as far as numbers on scams and frauds, and leading the way and how much money per incident that they lose. And it was interesting because it's something they said something that I've talked about before. 2 reasons why seniors tend to get scammed more so than anybody else. Anybody know what that one thing is, or 2 things? But the first thing is that the first thing that allows people to get into your home. What is it? The phone. Answering the phone, right? Why? Because seniors have been taught early on that you have to answer the phone, right? I mean, it's rude not to answer the phone. I've fought this battle with my mom now, previously with my father before he passed away. If the phone rang, they had to answer it. And that's the first thing that they're counting on, is to get you on that phone, because then they have you. And then the second thing the article said was that not only are past generations taught that it's rude not to answer a phone, it's rude to hang up on people. It's not. It's really not. You can hang up on people. You should hang up on people. That if you would just do those 2 things, stay off Facebook and don't answer the phone. And when I say don't answer the phone, obviously you have to have some way of finding what's going on, who's calling you, and so forth. Answer machines, screen your calls, and that's a huge thing. If you can screen your calls so that you can wait, and I said I fought this battle with my mom. My mom's funny. She's 93, and she likes answering it because she likes to fight with them. So, but I don't encourage people to do that. But I told her to don't do that. Just screen your call, but she can't do it. But she'll say, how would you feel if somebody was ripping off your mother? And she gives them the whole shame speech. Don't do that. I told her don't engage with these people. And a lot of times, what happens is they've found the more if you answer the phone, you're actually acknowledging that this is a good phone number. There's a live person on the other end, and now you fall into a higher category. So the best thing is just not answer it. Let it go to an answer machine, and then listen to the message. And it takes that pressure off. It really does take some of that pressure off that you have to, immediately go out and do something. It gives you a little, because somebody's jabbering in your ear, telling you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to do it. And I'll just give an example. Pharmacy fraud. That one tends to come around here and there, and that's where you get a phone call that says, "Hey, this is Walgreens or CVS pharmacy. Your prescription's ready, but we have a problem with your account. We need to get some more information. Your Medicare numbers and your Social Security and your bank account and all that stuff." And so you're thinking, okay, well, I do have my prescriptions at CVS. I was waiting on a prescription. A lot of us get monthly, prescriptions, and so you give them that information. That has happened quite a bit here, even in Brevard County. And you're thinking, well, how did they know I have CVS prescriptions? They have no idea. They have no idea. Don't tell me, but I bet if I did a survey in here, I'd find that you're either CVS, Walgreens, Publix, or Walmart. I said one of those 4, I bet I could get just about everybody in here, right? And everybody watching on this video. So they know that. And so they'll make 1,000 phone calls and say, this is CVS, and 1,000 for Walgreens, 1,000 for Publix, and 1,000 for Walmart, and just hope that when you answer, they get 1 or 2 people that answer the phone and they have a prescription that's ready to go, and so they give that information. So that's the extent, the deviousness that they go through to try to do some of those scams. One other scam, just real quickly, is on counterfeit checks. That has not gone away. It's gotten worse and worse. And this works in a couple different ways. If you're trying to sell something, on eBay or Facebook, what's the one? Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, that's a big one now. You will get contacted, and let's say you're putting something on for $2,000. And they will contact you and say, hey, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to send you a check. They don't come see you because you're never going to meet them or talk to them. They send you a check for $2,500. And you go, oh my gosh, what's going on? I got $2,500. They will call you up and say, hey, did you get my check? Yeah, but it's for $2,500. I say, well, gosh, it was a mistake. My bookkeeper messed up, my husband, wife, whatever they blame it on. Tell you what, if you'll go down and cash your check, if you'll keep the $2,000 and just wire me back the $500, we'd really appreciate it. You know what? Keep an extra $50 if you'll just wire back the $450. And usually the numbers are bigger, but just for sake of purpose. What happens is when you go to the bank, your bank's going to cash that check for you. I know there's somebody here from bank, so I don't want to insult bank people, but bank's going to cash it. If you're a good customer, they're going to cash your check. They're not going to question you. What happens is it takes a while for that check to work its way through the system. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 days, it could take a week, and take 10 days before it comes back to your bank that it's a counterfeit check. And those checks are so real now, you cannot tell the difference. In fact, I had this scam happen to me, and this was the cashier's check that was sent to me. And it's got watermarks on it. It's from a bank, credit union in California. I checked, the credit union exists. Everything is perfect on this cashier's check, but it's a complete scam. It's a complete fraud. And the bank's not going to know that initially. They may or may not know. They may catch it, but they probably won't. And so the bank's going to come to you and say, you owe us money now. And they're perfectly legal right for them to demand that money because they're just cashing that check for you as a service. So you have to be so careful now. Anytime you get checks, cashier's checks. That's why closings now, real estate closings, they don't take cashier's checks anymore. They've done with cashier's checks. It used to be a cashier's checks were like gold. They were official. Nobody believes them anymore. You can't trust a cashier check, so they don't use them. So anyway, that's a quick frauds. I know I'm coming up on 25 minutes here, so I'm going to try to get through this real quick. I have a couple of handouts out here that I would ask you to take, especially if you have other groups that you can take them back to. One is an identity fraud action steps. It's a 4-page front and back, 2 pages, on what to do if you think you have become a victim of identity theft. This is a really good step-by-step process to go through. I'd love to say that I created it, but I stole it from Attorney General Pam Bondi back when she was Attorney General. And it's just it really is a good thing. So I leave that up there. Also, there's a little handout on charity and donations, if you're going to give to charities and donations, and also some identity theft steps. We are one of the most giving people on the planet Earth, and every time there's a natural disaster, we give money. Scammers know that. Within hours of any natural disaster, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, tsunami, there are scammers already creating fake web pages or websites where they try to get your money. This tells you how to kind of protect yourself from that as much as you can, so please utilize that as well. And then also, I'm going to leave a sign-up sheet here if any of you want to sign up for our newsletter. We do a newsletter every month. In fact, I got a couple of copies of our most recent one. Not that I had more, but we do a monthly brief. It's a 1-page monthly brief. And again, I have a great writer on staff that puts this together, Todd Brown. And we keep it 1 page. We keep it very simple. We try to talk about some of the current scams and frauds that are going on out there. And please sign up if you want to get this every month and you have an organization that you can shoot it out to some other people. I promise you, if you give us your email address, we won't try to sell you anything. We won't try to scam you. But people have used, scammers have used my likeness and our webpage to try to do that. We had somebody call some Puerto Rico or Virgin Islands or somewhere saying, hey, where's my money? Where's my grant that you're giving out? And we're like, what are you talking about? And they sent us a link that showed somebody had taken my picture and our state attorney's web address and figured out a way to convince people that we were going to give out grants and got some money and scams. So I'll leave that up here as well, some examples. But if you're interested, sign up, and I'll leave that up there, and then we can get that back from us. Because it's a great way to get that information out. When we get a phone call about a current scam, we try to get that in the next newsletter, or actually on our Facebook page, State Attorney Phil Archer, we put it up immediately, and then it goes into our newsletter. So that was very, as you can tell, I'm out of breath. I could run through about 18 other scams and frauds, but that kind of just gives you an idea. Again, vigilance is the best thing. If it sounds like a scam, it probably is a scam, and you just got to help your loved ones, help your neighbors, to kind of be a resource and kind of just keep an ear out. If you hear they're heading to the wire money or heading to the bank to take out some money, ask them why. Ask them some questions. And I said again, thanks to the Golden Providers and the businesses that are really helping us prevent some of those scams. So anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. Thank you. Wow, and that's just, as you've heard, that's just a few examples of some of these things that people are doing. So do we as an audience think that this type of thing is just going to go away anytime soon? No. Unfortunately, I don't think so. And as we heard, even law enforcement, it's usually done in a way where there's really not much that even law enforcement's able to do. It's maybe just too small of a sum, and it's just too prevalent to really go after and catch these people that are doing it. So really, it seems like one of our only options is to become educated. Knowledge is power, right? And to educate our friends, our family, and of course the seniors in our lives, just to be on the lookout, be aware of some of these items. And we're going to hear some more examples from our upcoming speakers. So our next speaker is a longtime banking professional, and Steve Bilbo is going to be talking to us now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Phil had some great tips there, and it really is scary how much our private data is out there in the world, and it's, I'm in the banking business. I'm a mortgage banker and have worked for a bank for many years, and they're always teaching us every year. We have a lot of continuing education that we're required to take, and I feel fortunate being in that we learn a lot of things that are going on in the world, and I think that people that are not in the banking business, that don't get this continuing education about what's happening, they may not understand what things are going on. Some simple things that you can do to kind of keep your data safe and prevent people from being able to access your information. A couple of things as it relates to your banking accounts is, it's tempting to give your friends and your family, and if you've got a caregiver or whatever, it's tempting to maybe have them give them access to your account. Resist doing that. Anytime you give anyone access to your account, whether you share your user ID, if you have electronic access, most everybody does now, once you begin to give that information out, they have access to all of your money, not just part of it, all of it. So make sure that you take caution when you determine who you're going to put on your bank accounts and what information you give them access to. Don't be fooled. A lot of the things that can happen to people is they may get contacted by what someone's presenting to be a bank representative to call and ask you for your user ID or your password or your social security number. Any of that information, a bank will never do that. They're not going to call you and ask you for that information. They know that information, so certainly be careful and don't get caught off guard. It's easy to fall prey to that sometimes, so just be careful. Passwords, logins, things of that nature. Make sure if you have access to electronic banking, and most people do again, be careful when you write down information. If you write down your user ID and your password, you have to keep it safe somewhere. Don't just write it down and keep it on a little sticky pad sitting in your kitchen, because if somebody comes in that maybe you don't know them as well as you think they do, now they have access to your user ID, your passwords to gain access to your accounts. And the banks have a lot of things now that do protect you for that, but it's best to take care of your information yourself. So be careful with that. If you have passwords that you use to access your accounts, make sure you change them regularly, because if someone grabs those somehow, some nefarious person on the internet grabs stolen identifications and passwords and all kinds of hacking things that have occurred, then they have that. So try to change it every once in a while to keep it safer. If you think there is anything at all suspicious that's happened on your account, go to the bank. Contact them directly. Make sure you alert them to let them know, hey, I see some things that have happened on here that I did not authorize, and you want to make sure that you get in touch with them as soon as possible. One thing that all consumers get annually is an opt-out ability. So an opt-out clause from your financial institutions, it will be from your bank, if you have any loans, mortgages, a lot of different creditors. They're going to send you a notice each year to give you the ability to opt out of sharing your information with related companies or companies they might do business with. Know that it's your control. If you don't want them to share your information with other creditors to maybe offer you a better credit card or a better loan or refinance, that type of a thing, it's your choice to determine whether or not you share that. So be on the alert for that information each year they're going to send to you and give you the ability to make that choice each year. Some people want that ability. Maybe I want my companies that my bank does business with to offer me other services that are companies doing business with them that they think might be able to help you, and maybe I don't. So that's your choice. So that's called your opt-out clause, and you can exercise that each year. Phil covered a lot of the things about people that are contacting you when you're receiving phone calls. So at the bank we get a lot of training about, be careful, because people will try to call a bank employee and get us, they try to trick us. They try to trick us into thinking it's a customer calling and they want information, and we have to, really be careful of that as well. But for you, be alert when you're receiving those phone calls. I also believe that it's good to hear these things more than once, because one person tells you, you hear it a few different times, you go, hey, I really do have to be careful of this. Be careful that you don't provide any personal information to strangers. People will call you, think you're just having a conversation. Well, they're taking notes on everything that you may be telling them, and they take little pieces of information, and now they have a lot of information about you at different times, and they'll use that to kind of impersonate you, basically. So be careful with that. Your bank is never going to call you and ask you for your personal information. They're just not going to do that. So if you get that call, make sure you know that it's not a bank customer. It might be a friendly voice, but they're not really friendly. They're going to try to be friendly. They want to gain your confidence, and you got to be careful with that. Email and the internet. There's so many things that go on. I think most everybody is using email in some sense, or you're using your phone to communicate, to make phone calls, communicate with people, with your loved ones, with business, everything. So email is a great tool. It really is. And your phone is as well. But it can also be used to kind of trick you on various things. So a few things. When you get an email, many times you'll get an email and you might get an email and it'll have a link on there. So if you click on this little link, it'll take you to what you think is your bank's website. Be very careful with that. I would tell you that for myself personally, anytime I get an email from my bank or anybody I do business with, I never click on that link, because clicking on that link can take you to something that is posing as the financial institution. It might look a lot like them. As he said, they can take these images and place them on there, and there's just one little telling factor or two that keeps you away. Now you've gone into what you think is your bank account. You've put in your user ID, you've put in your password, and now the technology on the other end of that line has your data, and now they can access it for you. As a personal story, this happened to me a few years ago. I received an email on my phone. I was busy. I opened up my emails at lunchtime. I look at it. Oh yeah, and before I knew it, I realized, wait a minute, that's not right. I will tell you, within 15 minutes, I was getting notices that they were trying to wire money out of my account. And they did. They wired, I think it was $650 to a party somewhere. I contacted the bank. I said, hey, there's something going on. At the time, they didn't see it that was going on, but I went down to the bank and they pulled it up and they realized that is what had happened. So I had fallen prey to it. So I think that's testimony that anybody, even being in the business of financial business, you can be tricked for these things, so be very careful. Spelling and grammar can be a tip-off. So if you get an email and they're telling you, and someone say, well, what does spelling and grammar have to do with anything? Oh, a lot of times these criminals, they're not in America. They're in other countries. They don't know our language perfectly. And so the tip-off might be that they're not using proper grammar. So if you see that in an email, just think about it as you're going forward with it. It might just give you a tip that it might be something that's a thing. Same thing with your phone, and you might get a text, And texts can look like they're real. Click on this text to access your account information. Don't click on those links in your text because it can take you there. If you need to get to your account, get to it another way. Urgent language and scare tactics is another way, as Phil touched on earlier. They'll come up with some crazy story that'll grab your emotions. All of a sudden you think something terrible is happening. It's likely not, so be careful of that. So those are some of the things that you can do in your own life, I think, to protect your own personal data. Be careful out there in our electronic world. There's a lot of great things that it brings to us, but it also does give some criminals some access to us that they wouldn't otherwise have. So just be alert, pay attention, and if you have any issues that you think are suspect with your bank, contact the bank directly. Call them, go to the bank, talk to them. The representative will help you out there. So, all right. Hope that's helpful for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, it's just sad to hear these things, but it's also enlightening, isn't it? So we've got some great content. Something in my industry, the real estate industry, that's common. We have to actually get a form signed, everybody on all sides, saying never trust wiring instructions from an email. And the reason is that apparently throughout time, a hacker had gotten access to someone's email account, whether it be the buyer, the seller, the realtors, or the title company, and swapped out the wiring instructions that were to go to the title company, and that went to the buyer. They wired all that money to what they thought was the title company to close on the deal, and it went to some criminals, essentially. The problem is that who's going to pay that money back? It's very difficult or impossible to get that money back, and now you've got all these parties like, well, who's in trouble? Well, someone got hacked. So essentially, it's a warning we have to give to everybody. Don't never trust wiring instructions that came via email. You have to basically get it in person, or at least make sure you call on the phone to verify. So again, it's sad stuff. Now we're going to transition to talking about IT, computers, and internet some more. We have an expert, Jason Daniels with Olive Branch IT, and he's going to talk to us about staying safe in the digital world.
Good morning. My name's Jason Daniels. I'm from Olive Branch IT. We're a full-service IT company, and we fight scammers and hackers every day, all day. As you heard, there's a few ways that it happens. The most common are email and pop-ups. So you heard a little bit about the email. If it's spelled wrong, if it looks like it's from your bank, but you're not expecting that email, just don't click on it. Typically, if you read the email and you pay attention, you can tell it's a scam. That's not the dangerous one, though. The one that's dangerous these days is, let's say you're on Facebook and you're looking at family members' photos, or if you're on your bank website and you're doing transfers, or if you're reading your email, something's going to pop up on your screen. Now, scammers like to use scare tactics on the internet. So they want to scare you into giving up your money. The way that they do that is with this pop-up. It might be a big red screen that beeps and squeals and says, alert, alert, you're going to prison, alert, you owe the IRS, alert, your child's in danger, alert, your computer's about to be wiped out. There's 100 different ways they do it. 99.9% of the time, it's a pop-up scam. Now, on these windows that you see, they may be blue, they may be red, some are black, they're all a little bit different, but they all have pretty much the same things in common. One, they're trying to scare you. They're saying something's wrong. Two, there's a phone number on there, or there's an instant message link. Click here to talk to somebody to help. The one I see people falling for most is a red screen that pops up, and it beeps, and it squeals, and it alerts, and it says, call this phone number right now. You have a virus. We can take care of your virus. The typical person will go, that's not right, and push the button on their computer and kill the computer. That's okay. That's one of the safer ways to deal with it. Some people will actually call those phone numbers. If you call those phone numbers, now the scammer has your contact information. They weren't targeting you specifically, but now they have your information. So now they've got your phone number. If you call them and you talk to them, they say, well, let me get access to your computer. We'll look at it, see what's going on, and we might be able to fix this for you. It shouldn't take more than 30 minutes or so. So you say, okay, what do I do? They give you a website. Go to logmein123.com. So you do. You go to that website. Click here. You click on that button. Now they have access to your computer. Now you've got somebody who typically doesn't speak fluent English. It's typically broken English. Sometimes it's an Indian accent, sometimes South American accent, sometimes a British accent. English is obviously not their first language. Once they get into your computer, they start pulling up screens. You get a black screen that shows up and they say, oh, look at all these connections. These are all the people trying to hack into your computer. Or they'll pull up a screen and say, look at all these viruses you have. These are bad viruses. They're trying to steal your information so we can fix it for a price. Now, it may be $50 one-time fee will fix it. It may be, a lifetime protection plan is $500. All we need is your credit card information. It sounds legit to some people, but it's not. Don't ever fall for it. A lot of times they'll say, welcome to Microsoft, how can I help you? Or welcome to Google, how can I help you? It's not a legitimate company that you're dealing with. Once they get your information, they've got your computer access. Now they have access to all your passwords, all your usernames, all your Facebook passwords, all of your email addresses, everything you've ever done on that computer they have full access to. And there's a couple scenarios that could play out. One, you may pay them because you may feel like it's a legit company. Now they've got your credit card information. They're not going to just bill it one time. Now they've got your credit card, they're going to sell your credit card information to other scammers. They're going to charge it several times before your bank even realizes what's happening. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you say, this feels like a scam, I'm done talking to you, and you hang up. Well, you forgot they're in your computer. They've put back doors into your computer. So you turn your computer off, you hang up the phone, get frustrated. A couple days later, you turn your computer back on. They get an alert, your computer is back on, and they backdoor into it. Now everything you type, they're tracking. So every password you put in, they're tracking. Every email you type, they're tracking. If you log into your bank, now they've got your bank login information. Then from there, that's when things start getting scary. Because even though you don't see that error anymore because it was a fake pop-up and they made it go away, now they've got a backdoor into your account. They may start deleting your pictures. They may delete your password. They may encrypt your hard drive and put a ransom on there. So now, I didn't pay that person because it sounded non-legitimate, but now my computer's encrypted. Now it's ransomed, and I have to pay the ransom to get back on my computer, to get all my stuff back. Some people pay the ransom. Some people don't. If you don't pay the ransom, sometimes they'll go back into your computer because they know how to hack into it, and they will wipe everything out. Now you've lost everything on your computer. So it's become very dangerous. The internet's a great tool, but if you're not paying attention, it can be very, very dangerous. Some of the things to look for, as Steve and Phil had both said, is logos. Like if you get an email from a bank, look at the logo. If it's blurry, if it's off just a little bit, if the color's off, if it looks in the wrong place, typically it's in the top left, now it's in the middle. Anything that's not exactly like what you're used to seeing, most of the time it's fake. These scammers don't take the time to recreate the logos, they usually copy and paste. And you can tell, it's usually blurry or it's blown up really big, or sometimes they shrink it really small. The language and the grammar is almost always messed up. Even if the spellings are 100% correct, if you read it out loud, a lot of time it reads like a foreign person would speak. It's not fluent English. They'll put S's where there's not supposed to be S's, or they will spell words in ways that in the English language grammatically it doesn't fit. That's usually a telltale sign. Usually the Indian hackers, they like to pluralize words that aren't plural. So pay attention for that. If it's not written exactly as an English proper grammar way to be written, it's most likely a scam. If you're still unsure if it's a scam or not, you've looked at the picture, you've looked at the writing, and you're still not sure, there's usually a URL. Now the URL is at the top of the page where you type in http://www, whatever it is. Microsoft is always going to say Microsoft.com. Adobe will always say Adobe.com. A lot of these scammers will put Microsoft with an extra T, or it'll be Microsoft.uk or Microsoft.ca. It won't be exactly Microsoft.com. And if you don't pay attention to it, you won't catch it. It'll look legitimate, and you'll end up clicking on it or following the website, and it starts from there. Another couple things you can look at is if you see that red pop-up come up, or if you see an error message pop up, pull up your cell phone and say, you know, computer just did this. If you use your cell phone or a tablet or another computer in the office and you're suspecting of something, use another device and look it up. Because 9 times out of 10, if you do a Google search, you'll find scam, and it'll say pictures, how to stop it, how to block it. It'll give you all the details on it. The IT world's very, very fast on catching on to the scammers. The problem is we don't have a way to publish it. We can't do Amber Alerts for scams. So you have to look it up yourself and look for it. So just pay attention, be very vigilant on it. If you have any suspicion whatsoever, research it, call somebody. You know, people call our office every day, hey, I got this pop-up. It's a scam, close it, don't worry about it. So just be vigilant. That's it for me.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Jason. Yes. It seems like the more educated people become. I deal with this with my own mom. In the beginning, when she was using email, she would end up where she would kind of click on anything because it looked legitimate. And I think that's part of the way that scammers will get you, is that even the things that come in the mail, they'll get you to trust it because it looks like an official government document, or it's like an official looking paper. And it may just simply be what you would call spam, or it's just advertising. It's really not fraudulent, but they are kind of tricking you because they're making it look like it's like a government document. There's other cases where there's something that I see regularly. Everybody in Florida who closes on a piece of real estate will get multiple letters in the mail after they close saying, for $85, we'll send you a copy of your deed. And the problem is, you're going to get the original of your deed back from the title company anyway. So you don't need to pay someone $85. All those people are doing is just going online to the clerk of the courts, printing a copy and mailing it to you and charging you $85. So it's technically legal, but it's also really fooling people who just thought that, oh yeah, I got to have my deed. I just bought a piece of property. So with my mom, so in the beginning, she would trust anything, and I would constantly be saying, don't you see the fraud here? They're trying to do something. And we don't always know what they're doing. We don't know whether they're trying to steal your identity, get access to your credit card, or maybe plant a virus or a backdoor on your computer. Don't worry about what they're doing. We don't have to know exactly what they're trying to accomplish, whether they're going to get information. I had an experience where I was at a friend's house who's in her 80s, and while I was there going over something with her, the phone rang, and she was listening. It was kind of like, who is this? And then she handed the phone to me, and I said, yes, can I help you? And he said, yeah, we work for the major insurance companies, and he listed off like 5 major health insurance companies. We just need to know her primary health care provider. The funny thing about the call was, none of the 5 insurance companies that he said were her insurance company. And I said, that's kind of interesting. You work for these insurance companies. Why would you be calling to ask for her primary health care provider? It sounds like a scam to me. Let me hand you to my supervisor. So some other guy got on the phone, and I'm talking to him. I said, this sure sounds like a scam. Why would you be calling? Plus, I'll let you know, those companies none of those are the ones she has. He hung up. So obviously, this was an attempt probably to fraudulently bill for some medical services that she had never had, because they would now have an insurance and primary health provider. So really sad that we have to deal with these things. So anyway, now I've got my mother so scared that she doesn't trust anything. So now I have to go like, no, that actually is from your bank, or no, that actually is something, you've got to click it. So it's tough. It's a shame that we have to become skilled in these matters. So. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We're going to listen to Robin Femister and Lisa Hodgins about staying safe at home.
Okay, so what has been talked about most this morning already is frauds and exploitation by people that are strangers to us. What Lisa and I want to talk to you about is, number one, we want to talk about how to stay at home safely, how to protect yourself, but more of what we run into as guardians and case managers is exploitation and fraud by people that we know, or people that we thought we trusted. And so we want to touch on that a little bit. First, we're going to talk about the happy things like how to stay at home. And so looking at a scenario maybe with a husband and a wife, where there's a spouse that's the caregiver or possibly another family member, first and foremost, the absolute most important message that I want to share with you today is to make sure that you have your advance directives in place. Make sure that you have someone that you trust designated as your advocate, whether it's your durable power of attorney, whether it's a healthcare surrogate, someone that can make a decision for you medically when you can't, either by incapacity or illness or something. It could be a short-term problem that you need to have someone make medical decisions for you, or it could be a long-term issue. So please, please, please make sure those things are in place. If you have wishes about how not only you want to live your life, but how you want to die, please also get those wishes documented. There's a document called 5 Wishes. It's a great way to begin that dialogue. There's a do not resuscitate. If you don't sign it while you have capacity, someone else is going to make that decision for you. So please, please, please get those things in place. Next, as a way to be as safe as possible at home, is to bring in consultants if necessary, or if you can still do it on your own, do a home safety evaluation. Make sure that you have the right equipment, the right ramps, the right height on a walker, the right grab rails in place, the right security in place to remain at home as safely as possible. There are cameras that can be put in the home, very inexpensive now. It used to be a very expensive option, but you can have cameras at home. You can set up Alexa to call your family member. So there are very inexpensive tools that can be put in the home for as long as that remains safe and appropriate. Typically, when one spouse is the caregiver, there can become some challenges, and I'd like Lisa to touch on some of the things that we see.
Well, we see when the spouse is a caregiver that after a while there could be some caregiver burnout. They're doing all the laundry, all the cooking, all the shopping, all the taking care of the person, probably up with them during the night when the spouse isn't sleeping well. So that person gets really burnt out, and what we find is that they get kind of prideful. They feel like they can handle it all, and they're not asking for help. And then as they get burnt out, they're more tired, they're fatigued, they're a little shorter tempered, they're not maybe giving as much love and attention to the person that they should be. And there's some great support teams out there. Dr. Visa has a program right next to her building on Palm Bay, Center for Family Caregivers. It has a great support group. But I really encourage, if you know a spouse that's taking care of their loved one, really encourage them to get some support. Maybe have one of their kids come stay with the parent for a while so that they can go get a break. So important for their mental health. What else?
Another resource is sometimes people bring in hospice too late. People think of hospice as the very end of life, but palliative care is a wonderful approach, and it brings nursing, doctors, CNAs in to do help with bathing, but oftentimes it's brought in too late. So think about that a year or maybe even 2 years out, when it may just be some extra helping hands in the home to keep that person home longer. Most people say they want to die at home, and so there are things that can be done. The problem is when a crisis arrives. So we want to try and avert a crisis long before it happens, having a plan.
Some of the other things we could have, in-home services come in. Caregivers come in maybe a couple hours a day to give the caregiver a break. We have nursing in-home services that'll come visit out and do the medication management, take that burden off of the shoulder of the caregiver. Having nursing come in and help. They'll come in whether it's once a week, once a month. They'll work it out with the family. That has been a great asset because you're managing all these bottles, and if they have any vision problems, I mean, it could be a nightmare. And polypharmacy, where they're going to different doctors and making sure that these methods aren't interacting. It's so important to have outside agency maybe come in and manage the medicines.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I brought an example of just something that we try to utilize with some of our clients. Please make sure that there's a good, current, updated med list in the house at all times. Some of the pharmacies will pre-plan the medication so that if vision is an issue or a little bit of forgetfulness or some cognitive decline, put the responsibility on the pharmacy to pre-plan. These are Skittles, right? It's not real medications, but this is a local pharmacy that does free delivery to the home in 1 or 2 week packs at a time. They're all laid out by what day, but the description, this is something that can easily be brought to the emergency room. The EMTs, paramedics can bring this in the ambulance, but it describes what the medication looks like, what color it is, who prescribed it, which doctor, and what it's been prescribed for. So great tool, and it's free. So those are available, but it seems as though most people don't know about them. So we've now, that it's a wonderful option when people consider care in the home. But when someone doesn't want to spend that money or have a stranger, say, in their home, or loved ones aren't the dependable caregivers that they need, what we see too often is self-neglect and isolation. People driving that should not be driving anymore. So when someone's home alone, really looking for those warning signs on when they really need some extra help in the house. Again, their objective is to remain at home as long as possible, so that's an area that we want to keep an eye out for some of those red flags. Next, we want to jump into the next progression is, okay, so they've agreed to bring in some help. Well, there's different kinds of help that can come in. You can hire an agency that has licensed, credentialed caregivers, home health aides, or even CNAs that can help with some hands-on care, can help with dressing and showers, medication reminders, that sort of thing. They have been certified, and agencies do the background checks and scheduling if a caregiver can't be there on a particular day or had an emergency arise. The burden is on them to make sure that they put a different caregiver in place so there aren't gaps in the care. Another option, though, is hiring privately, and which they can do, but caution is there, red flags are there, but you want to make sure that some safety measures are put in place. There could also be payroll issues. Even though you're hiring privately, you may still be subject to paying for overtime, or you may still be subject to having to compute payroll taxes, and sometimes that's just more than some people can handle in their own homes. So some of the red flags, let's talk about how to really make sure that safety measures are in place, and some of it's been discussed, but in your own home, you want to make sure that your assets are protected. Making sure that your bank statements and your checkbooks and your credit cards and debit cards aren't in places that are easily accessible. We really want to believe that we can trust the caregivers that we've engaged to be in our home. But unfortunately, even some of the best people turn out to be untrustworthy. And so it really can open up to a lot of exposure to risk. We've had great success using, so there may be an occasion where you need your caregiver or your loved one to run to the grocery store and pick up groceries, but you don't want to give them cash, or you don't want to give them your debit card that accesses all of the money in your bank accounts. There are a couple local banks, but there's also an online bank that can help. So what we use, TD Bank has a Go card, Regions Bank has a Now card, and then TrueLink is something that you'd have to order online. But these are reloadable debit cards where you can set the limit. If you have access to a computer, you can look at every transaction as it happens, and so it limits risk. If you've got a caregiver, you give them a card that only has $200 on it, it can never go into the negative. It can only access the $200, and you can see everything that it was used for. So that's one way that you may be able to stay independent, but allows some people to have access to a little bit of money to be able to assist you in what you need. Any jewelry that is especially valuable, titles and deeds and coins, either have a very safe place in the home or consider the expense of $100 a year safe deposit box to secure those things. When you've designated a decision maker for you in the event of an emergency, making sure that they know the contents, as long as it's someone that's trustworthy, and when they should have access to those things. If there's a court-appointed guardian, the guardian has to obtain a court order before they can access a safe deposit box. So safety measures are built in place. Watching your bank balances and credit card balances, investment accounts very closely to make sure that they haven't been accessed by someone that you shouldn't have accessed them. And before making changes to advance directives, be sure to speak with an attorney first. Don't go to the local bank and revoke your daughter because you think she's stealing from you and you need to appoint the neighbor or someone that's become a new trusted friend. Speak to an attorney. Make sure that those changes are truly in your best interest and that you're not being coerced into something and being led down a rabbit trail where you shouldn't go. So I want to share a real life story with you about a past client of ours. And he and his wife had been married 50 years, happy as can be. He had dementia. He was definitely losing his capacity to make big decisions, but they had a plan. And they transferred a lot of assets into her name. She was the primary caregiver. She was doing a really good job taking care of him and keeping him home. However, she died unexpectedly. And that left him vulnerable. He was mostly okay staying in his routine at home, but someone that they had met a year or two before that sold antiques, and she liked antiques, so she sold antiques, showed up at the door. Unbeknownst to him, it was after she saw the obituary. So she saw that the wife had passed, but she showed up at the door, and when the husband answered the door, she asked to speak with the wife. Naturally, he broke down in tears and told him about the tragic news that she'd passed away. And this allowed her to enter the home. They sat together. They cried together. She became a wonderful confidant and friend and companion to him. And within 3 weeks, she had moved in. She moved in her special needs granddaughter. She made, with him, of course, with his permission, but realized he didn't understand fully what he was doing. They brought her past due mortgage current, made 3 months worth of mortgage payments that he agreed to because of course he would. This was his very close friend now. So it went on from there. They made some very large purchases. She did attempt to retitle his home. She missed one signature. It was notarized, it was witnessed. She needed one more witness signature and it would have gone through. This resulted in a guardianship. He was safe and sound. He did have to move. He was not safe living at home. He was too open to exploitation. But he lived several more years and he was very happy, but he trusted the wrong person as a caregiver. And she was very good at manipulating him into doing things he otherwise may not have. So be careful about who you trust. Make sure you trust the right people. And if you're not sure, consult with a professional. It's maybe worth the extra couple dollars to be sure that you're not being taken advantage of, or that you have a professional ear to run through the scenario with, and see if maybe it just might be too good to be true, but stay safe at home.
And I just want to kind of wrap it up by saying, we get questioned of how we can help maybe a neighbor. We know that this person's living alone. We're a little concerned about her care. Maybe she's a recent widow, can't drive. So you know that she's, who's visiting her? Maybe she has family that's out of state. I would maybe try to go visit her. These are your neighbors. If this is your circle in your neighborhood, try to get to know your neighbors. Bring them muffins. Invite them over for dinner to make sure they are okay. We might be seeing things like maybe their utilities are getting shut off, or they're having self-neglect. They might be going outside dressed inappropriately for the weather. These are almost signs of some cognitive issues that are starting to happen, so that puts them even more at risk. So just check on people. If you're not sure, call the Adult Protective Services. They will go out there and do a well check on them and make sure that they're okay, that their finances are okay, they're not at risk.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I wanted to thank everyone for coming. My name is Ashley Caswell. I've been here at Hibiscus Court Assisted Living for a very long time, and Hibiscus has actually been serving our senior population here in Melbourne for over 20 years. So we have seen a lot of vulnerable seniors come into our community because of something that happened to them out there. They were taken advantage of. So fraud prevention is something that we're really passionate about. Our partnership with the Golden Providers organization, it really, it's for education and for knowledge. And the more awareness we spread about these things that impact seniors, the better we're all gonna be. So I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Fraud Prevention 101, the definitive guide to keeping you safe and sound, presented by Golden Providers. Golden Providers are top industry professionals in real estate, assisted living, senior care, and so much more. Visit us online at goldenproviders.com.